Our speaker today is Eric Kulikowski. Eric is the Senior Director of North American Operations for Philips Respironics in Marysville, Pennsylvania. In this role, he is responsible for the overall operational management of 2 manufacturing facilities that produce life support, respiratory, home monitoring, sleep therapy, infant development care, and the critical care medical devices. He also defines and executes the lean and continuous improvement strategies for Philips Home Healthcare Solutions. Kulikowski joined Philips Respironics in 1990 as a product development leader, and in 1993 assumed the position of manager of purchasing for the manufacturing operation. In June of 1997, he transitioned into the position of demand flow technology, implementation leader, and was responsible for the definition, execution, and management of demand-based manufacturing. In March of 1998, Kulikowski accepted the position of plant manager for Respironics Colorado in Westminster, Colorado, and assumed the role of plant manager of the Marysville plant in March of 2000. Prior to joining Philips Respironics, Kulikowski worked for Lockheed Missiles and Space in Sunnyvale, California, as a propulsion test and design engineer. He earned a bachelor's in mechanical and aerospace engineering from the University of Dayton in 1985. He is presently a member of the Association of Manufacturing Excellence and has spoken at national forums on purchasing and operations excellence topics. Please help me welcome Eric Kulikowski.
Well, that's an auspicious entrance now, isn't it? So, I feel like we should have Dick Vitale up here this morning saying, "Awesome, baby," and because everything we hear about at these types of conferences, they're nothing without the people. And what we're going to talk about here today is really the power of what people can bring to your organization, and why focusing on the people aspect of your business is so important. We're going to talk a little bit about Philips and just give you an overview of how we fit inside of Philips. I want to actually define what engagement means, and it's more than a dictionary definition of engagement. I want to talk about a few myths about engagement. Also want to tell a few stories about some of the things that we're doing at Philips Respironics. Also then want to offer you a challenge to take back to your organization, and then we'll have time at the end for questions and answers. And I also should acknowledge up front, I just happen to be the guy who's blessed with being asked to tell this story to you. This story that you're going to hear today takes 600 people to make happen every day. And so I'm blessed with being the representative for Respironics here today. And this is their story. It's not just our story or my story. So a little bit about Philips Electronics. We are part of the larger Philips Electronics, much like our Philips partners at Philips Professional Luminaires, who are also an Industry Week Best Plants winner this year. We were acquired by Philips about 2 years ago. Philips is a market leader in medical diagnostic imaging, in lighting solutions, personal care and home appliances. We're very big in consumer electronics, especially in Europe, and home health care and monitoring. We're about a $32 billion company, and we have about 116,000 employees. We are part of the healthcare side of Philips. We're about an $11 billion division within Philips. We have about 33,000 employees, many of which are here in North America. You may not have even known that Philips was in the medical healthcare side of things. Our 2 largest competitors are General Electric and Siemens, and we are the 3rd largest healthcare company in the world. Philips was, the healthcare side of Philips was really built upon our presence on the hospital side of things, in imaging systems and ultrasound and patient monitoring. In fact, I think it was in 1917 we invented the medical x-ray tube. And that's what really launched us into the healthcare side of the business. So we have almost 100 years there. With the acquisition of Respironics in March of 2008, Philips Home Healthcare Solutions was developed. and brought to the surface. Home health care, if you've been reading anything about health care over the last couple of years, they don't want us staying in the hospitals very long. They want to push us to the home. They want to get us out of the hospitals as quickly as possible. And quite frankly, you don't want to be in the hospital because it's one of the most unsafe and unhealthy places in the world, is in the hospital. So you want to be at home. And that's where healthcare is growing. Healthcare is growing on the home side. And with the development of Philips Home Healthcare Solutions, with a nucleus being Respironics, we're really positioned for great growth going forward. So Philips is broken into three segments. We've got the healthcare side, the lighting side, and consumer lifestyles, which is our electronics and televisions and things like that. Within Philips Healthcare, we have a clinical care systems group that does ventilators and monitoring systems and things like that. We have healthcare informatics, which is really the software that's used in hospitals today. So if you're in the hospital, the nurse or doctor no longer comes around with a piece of paper and a clipboard or anything like that. They've got a barcode scan gun and a laptop computer on a cart, and they come in. Your wristband, your name band now has a barcode on it. All that has to be software driven, and we develop those systems. Imaging systems is MRI, CT scan, and X-ray. In fact, our imaging systems group is based right here in Cleveland for our North American operations. We have about a 1 million square foot facility right here in Cleveland where we build what we call big iron, and that's all the CTs and MRIs and X-ray equipment. As a mechanical engineer, it's really impressive to see an MRI machine without the enclosure on it and see all that metal spinning around and making all that noise that you hear when you're getting an MRI or a CT. It's pretty impressive to see how that's done. And then lastly, home health care. And on the home health care side, we're about $1.5 billion entity within Philips. So a little bit about us. We are based in Western Pennsylvania. Philips Respironics is just east of Pittsburgh. Go Steelers, especially right now. Go Pens. Go Pens. 7-4 win last night over Ottawa. We're pretty happy about that. I'm not sure the sports bar we were in were real happy about us being there last night, but it was a great game. We support about $1 billion of revenue out of our 2 factories in Western Pennsylvania. We have about 600 associates and just under 300,000 square feet. We produce electromechanical devices, electronic devices, and millions of spare parts and disposables every year. Our volumes range anywhere from 1 a year to about 3 or 4 million a year. Anyone ever heard of the iron lung from the post-polio epidemics back in the 30s and 40s? We still have about 40 patients in North America that are kept alive by iron lungs, believe it or not. And we are the repair depot for iron lungs. So every now and again, we have to produce a spare part for an iron lung. My favorite spare part for the iron lung is a 1947 GMC pickup truck fan belt. So, you know, you're not going down to your local auto parts store to find that. You're looking on the internet, you're on eBay, you're on J.C. Whitney, you're somewhere trying to find a 1947 GMC pickup truck fan belt. We're also a bit unique in that we are not a focused manufacturing operation. We support 6 different business segments. Our sleep therapy group, which is our largest, sleep diagnostics, infant management, home care ventilation, hospital ventilation, home monitoring, and later this year we're getting ready to add a 7th one, which is respiratory drug delivery, wherein we use the respiratory pathway to deliver drugs to patients. We also provide all the aftermarket support for this business. In total, we support about 7,000 shippable SKUs between our plants. We run 2 shifts a day, 5 days a week. We're union-free, always have been, always will be. We are primarily an assembly and test operation. We do not do any raw material conversion. We outsource all of our printed circuit board manufacturing, plastic injection molding, motor manufacturing, that sort of thing is all outsourced. And lastly, we pretty heavily leverage SAP within our operation. SAP is our computer system that we use, and it's very heavily leveraged on the industrial side. In fact, one of our plants in Western Pennsylvania is completely paperless, and it's all done in SAP. All the elements of that factory are in SAP. And obviously all of our financials and back office, as well as our technical side, all of our change management, change control, document control, everything is done inside of SAP. A little bit about our products. This is products that we manufacture for the treatment of obstructive and central sleep apnea. Reggie White, NFL player, died a couple of years ago. Reggie White died of complications from untreated sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is when a patient lays down to go to sleep, their airway closes off and they stop breathing. And when the brain realizes that there's no oxygen flowing into the body, it wakes the patient up. The patient starts breathing again. They fall back asleep. Same thing happens. This can easily happen 300 to 400 times a night. So if you think you tossed and turned in that strange bed last night, just think what life would be like if you were waking up 400 times a night. And so we developed this product line in 1985 and are the market leaders for that. These are a couple of products that we manufactured for our infant management group. We have a group that we produce products for that is entirely focused on the prematurely born baby. And this device right here is for the monitoring of babies that are susceptible to sudden infant death syndrome. One of our founders lost a child to sudden infant death syndrome in 1978 and decided he wanted to develop a product to be able to monitor babies and alert the parents when the baby has stopped breathing so that they can go and try and get to the baby and get them to wake up again. We also make some products to diagnose sleep disorders. And so there's some in-lab systems. This is basically a PC. You can be diagnosed at home with some portable sleep diagnostic systems. And then we also make these things. They look like wristwatches because they are. We actually make wristwatches. And what these are for is sleep research. So, for example, a drug company is developing a new drug. They want to determine what impact it might have on your sleep-wake cycle and your sleep patterns. So you'll wear this device and it will monitor you for that. Lastly, we make products for ventilation and life support ventilation. Christopher Reeves, Superman, fell off a horse, became a quadriplegic a number of years ago. Christopher Reeves was kept alive by one of our ventilators. It's not the reason he died. I always like to say that. The ventilator didn't fail. Christopher had a lot of other problems. But this device right here is on the end is what kept Christopher Reeves alive. We also now build the products for Philips Lifeline. I've fallen in, I can't get up. Anybody ever hear that? Remember those commercials? Well, that wasn't us. That was a company called Life Alert. But they're a small player in the market. We're the #1 player in the home monitoring market so that the elderly can live on their own and stay at home. And so if they fall, they can push a button. Or in fact, this device here, if they fall, it knows they fell. It has an altimeter and an accelerometer built in to know that they fell, and it will automatically alert Lifeline and tell them that they need help. And so we are manufacturing all of these products in our factory today. So with what I've just shown you, you can see it's a wide array of products. We aren't just a one-trick pony. We've got a lot of different things, and that creates some challenges for us in a lot of different ways. So let's talk about employee engagement. And our tagline is empower, enable, and engage, or what we call E-cubed. And that's really what it's all about. And the power of engaging your employees, I think, surprises us every single day. It's really hard for us to set expectations for a new employee engagement program because every single one that we've focused on has just blown us away. And when you empower your employees and you enable your employees and you engage your employees, great things can happen. And I love this quote from Anne Frank. How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. So if we, as managers in our organization, just get out of the way, our employees will start making things better on their own if we empower them to go do that. So here's the definition of engagement. The act of sharing in the activities of a group. Pretty simple, right? Sounds really simple. Well, I think we all know it's not that simple. But this is truly what we're trying to do in our organizations, is to get our people involved in the activities of a group. So let's talk about some myths and roadblocks when it comes to engagement. And some of these you might find humorous. Some of them may just hit way too close to home for you. If everyone can make decisions, what do they need me for? Right? Isn't that why they hired me? Because I'm a pretty smart guy. I make decisions. They don't need me anymore. It's too risky to let everyone make decisions. You know, we're a medical device manufacturer. We make life support and life monitoring devices, heavily regulated by the FDA, heavily regulated by other worldwide medical device regulatory bodies. But what are we thinking, letting our employees make decisions? They could hurt somebody. They could kill somebody. They just don't understand. What makes them so smart? They don't know how to do that. It takes a manufacturing engineer to change things on the production floor. Don't we know that? That's how we've all been brought up. We should only work on the big problems. Little problems can't hurt us. You know, all those little things in the plant, none of that can really hurt us. We need to solve the big stuff. We empower our employees. They just don't want to do it my way. Right? That's what you call an uninspired leader when they think they want everybody to do it their way. Or we just stand up in front of a room and we declare to all of our employees, you're all empowered, now go fix some problems. Declaring somebody empowered and training someone how to be empowered are two different things. We have to train them. We have to educate them, and then we have to nurture them after that. We just can't declare, thou shalt be an empowered employee, now go make some things happen. Only engineers can solve manufacturing issues. Not true, and we'll show you why. And lastly, it's just too damn hard. Why should I spend all this time when I already know how to do all that stuff? Why should I spend time teaching others how to do these things? But in the end, if you're going to be successful at employee engagement, you've really got to take a look at what you're focusing on inside your company and what's important to you every single day. Every company is driven by something. You're market-driven, you're technology-driven. Today, a lot of us are price-driven. We're product-driven. Maybe we're innovation-driven. We just heard about Parker Hannifin. You know, they've got thousands and thousands of parts. They probably are very much innovation-driven. Or you're service-driven. But in the end, if you really want to be successful and successful through your people, it doesn't matter what drives the revenue behind your company. You've got to be people-centric. You've got to look and focus on the people first and figure out how to make them the most robust part of your business. Now, I'm about to show you a quote that today is probably a little tarnished, but I think it still stands. GM makes cars. Toyota makes people that assemble cars. Now, we could say that assemble cars that may need recalled in the future. You know, we could probably modify this sentence right now, but it still stands true. If you've ever studied Toyota, this is truly, truly the case. Now, I had the opportunity at one of these conferences to listen to a guy speak. He was the head of Toyota North America. It was an older Japanese gentleman. He was giving a presentation on the Toyota people, the people of Toyota. And it was all about Toyota culture, right? And during his presentation, people were submitting questions on index cards. And after his presentation, he was answering questions. And he read one of the questions, and I'll never forget this. He read it, and it said, if this is working so well for you, why don't you write a book about it so the rest of us can go do it too? Fair enough. Well, he looked at the card, and he looked at the ceiling. He looked out at the crowd, and looked at the ceiling, looked at the card, leaned towards the microphone and said, because you just wouldn't get it. Next question. It's about making your people the fabric of your organization. And that's what Toyota has done, and that's part of what we can learn from them. So we found ourselves at a crossroads. You know, we've been on our lean journey since 1997. And we really started getting pretty good at the lean thing. And then in 2006, we said, you know, we're really at a crossroads because we can't take it any further with just us working on it, with just us leaders and engineers and so forth working on it. And we needed to define our next step in our evolution. And we were doing pretty well with lean, but formally, our continuous improvement programs, we were really lacking. It was nothing that was really formal for us. We were doing it, but we probably couldn't define it, really. So in 2006, we used the Industry Week Best Plants application as a benchmarking tool. We did not apply to win. In fact, had we won, the award had been a sham because we weren't ready. When we read the application, just the process of doing the application, of filling out the application, putting a team together, there's about 15 of us, we each took a chapter, and doing that application, we learned so much because it was a gap analysis for us of what's considered world-class and where we actually thought we were, where our own honest, candid assessment of where we were at was. And it highlighted a lot of areas of opportunity for us. And it prompted us to declare a continuous improvement revolution was needed because we were behind what was the definition of world-class at that time. And so we used, and I encourage all of you that have never done this, use the Industry Week Best Plants application as a benchmarking tool, as a gap analysis. Since we were a large company, it cost us $1,500 to apply. I think the small company fee is $500, if I'm not mistaken. That's the best consulting you'll ever get, is using that application as a gap analysis tool. And it was fabulous because we got great feedback from the Industry Week team. We were elected as a finalist, so we had to go a second round of questions. Those questions they came back to us were fabulous because it told us the areas that they were scratching their heads on and wondering, why do you measure it that way, or why don't you do this, or whatever. And it was really great for us. So we decided we needed to formalize some tools. 5S. So I have a copy of our 5S manual if anybody would like to look at it afterwards, and we're happy to share it. In fact, we were a bit remiss not submitting it to Industry Week to put on your flash drive, so we can share that. 5Y. We formalized a 5Y or an A3 program. Quick and Easy Kaizen, which is our suggestion system, and Stephanie will be sharing that with you a little bit later. Here's our guidebook for Quick and Easy Kaizen. We formalized it. QCDSM, quality, cost, delivery, safety, and now we've added morale. We measure morale every day in the plant, and we'll tell you a little bit about that later on. And here's our manual for QCDSM. We formalized it. And we also use fishbone diagrams, which we've seen some use of here this week. And so those 600 people that made possible what we're talking about today, as I mentioned earlier, we began the creation of 600 problem solvers. And we pursued our continuous efforts at a grassroots level. And not to knock a lot of the programs that we've heard about this week or maybe you've seen before that have a lot of fancy nature to them and Six Sigma black belt this and 6S that and all that sort of stuff. We weren't going that route. It had to be grassroots. And this was a grassroots-driven effort. Because if we kept it grassroots and kept it in a language and in a technology that anyone in our organization could get passionate about and could utilize, the results, the potential of the results are endless. So how did we get started? Well, we created a vision and we shared it. We created a mission and we're now living it. And we set goals. We set realistic goals. And we set goals using statistical tools. We didn't just grab an idea out of the air. And so our goal really is we want to inform our employees, we want to inspire our employees, we want to then involve our employees, and then on the back end reward them in some way for their efforts. And so here's our vision. Philips Respironics will be world-class operations and our region's employer of choice. That's the vision we created for our operations side of the business. It's built on a solid foundation of engagement, just like we heard at the breakfast keynote this morning, with a solid structure of operations excellence. And if we achieve both of those, we'll get what's called a sustainable competitive advantage. Sustainable competitive advantage is a collection of competitive advantages. Because if you only have one competitive advantage, it's pretty easy for you to go out of business because somebody will figure that one out and beat you at it. But if you have 7, 8, 10 competitive advantages, if they figure one or two out, you're still the strong player in the market. Here's our mission. Not going to read it all. You can see it on your jump drive, but we'll highlight a couple of the blue comments here. We want a safe, respectful, and rewarding work environment. We want a culture of continuous improvement. We want development opportunities and highly effective training programs for our folks. We want to engage our associates. We want teaming to be a priority. And we want to have collaborative supplier and customer relationships. So this is our mission. Again, this is all operations-based. This is not Philips' vision or mission. This is not Respironics' mission. This is us in operations. And so through our Hoshin planning process, these were the breakthrough objectives that we established. So we talked about you got to create a vision, got to create a mission, got to share your goals and define goals. Well, these were our goals. So let's tell a couple of stories about how we've begun, and we're still in the early stages of this. This was only 2006 that we had this epiphany, where we've begun to address some of the things that are going to be required for us to be not only successful as an organization, but one of our largest goals, and we're not afraid to say it is we want to keep manufacturing in the United States. And the only way we're going to do that is to get better and better and better at what we're doing. We heard a story in one of the panel discussions yesterday that our sister company within Philips can now make their lighting fixtures and lighting products cheaper than can be made in China. And that's not because they sat around and did nothing. It's because Dave and his team have really done some great things. And that's an objective of all of us, to keep manufacturing in the United States. So let's tell a few stories. One of our employee engagement opportunities is a team we call the exchange team. The exchange team is focused entirely on cultural improvement. It has nothing to do with Kanban, nothing to do with line yield. We're not looking at units per labor hour. We're not doing any of that typical stuff that folks like us look at. This was all about making it a great place to work. We want it to be a wonderful place to work. So this team's entire focus is culture. They're not allowed to go on the production floor and put Kanban systems in or do anything like that. It's all about culture. It's 20 associates from all of our shifts, all departments in both plants. We also have 5 mentors, generally people that are supervisors or leaders in the organization. These people have to apply to be on the team, and they're also then interviewed. It's a 2-page application. Why do I want to be a cultural ambassador in your organization? And then you're interviewed, and then you're selected. You're assigned then to the team for a 2-year rotation. So you're on the team for 2 years. Some of our folks didn't want to leave after 2 years. We've allowed them to stay if we had room. We meet once a month as a team, so all 25 of us get together. And then they're broken down into 5 teams of 4, the 20 are, 5 teams of 4. They meet separately as well to work on their projects, and I'll show you here in a minute what some of their projects are. We work on tactical and strategic projects. Tactical being something we can nail and get behind us in a week or 2. Strategic meaning we're probably going to need to involve other elements of the company and perhaps do some surveys, do some whatever, and so some strategic projects. And before they're allowed to even attend meeting 1, every new member is put through teaming classes, problem-solving classes, and conducting effective meeting classes. So we know they can be a productive and contributing member of this team. Again, you just can't tell people they're empowered. You have to show them how to be empowered. You have to teach them how to get there. So let's talk about some of the projects. These are some of our tactical projects. An assembler called PNC Bank and said, the ATM machine we have in our cafeteria, you're charging us $3 a transaction if we're not a member of PNC Bank, if we don't have an account there. We want you to wipe that fee out. Would you do that for us? And the person at PNC said, Chuck, thanks for calling. Love to talk to you about that. I can't eliminate it. How about if I cut it in half? Great. When can you come out and reprogram our machine? I don't have to come out. I can do it over the phone. Great. Thanks. Assembler. Wasn't an accountant, wasn't a CFO, wasn't anybody, an assembler. We have adopt a parking lot. Our parking lots are broken down into 5 segments. We have teams around the plant that adopt the parking lot and keep it clean. Does 2 things. We have clean parking lots. Also, when you know you have to pick up the trash, you're probably not going to throw the trash into the parking lot. We know how far it is to walk around all of our buildings. So when you're on your break and you want to go for a walk on a nice day like today, you know how far you're going to walk. If you go into any of our bathrooms, hanging above the urinals and on the backs of the doors in the stalls, we have what we call stall stories, or what some companies call the Stall Street Journal. And these are single-page, one-side page, informational things. Like this week's is about our open house we have coming up in June. We want people to sign up for the open house. And so we're putting messages up once a week or once every other week about career development or about wellness topics. You know, we talk about the benefits of eating vegetables or whatever. You know, it's all there. Second shift said, you know, when the caterer's not around, we don't have good napkins. We have to wipe our face with paper towels. That's not too fun. You know, as I heard one comedian say once, first you start with a runny nose, then you have a bloody nose because you're using the paper towels. We want napkins. Okay, we'll put napkin dispensers out there. So those are some of the tactical projects that we've worked on. These aren't big things, folks, but they're things that would never get done without this culturally focused exchange team. So these are some of our strategic projects. The big one I want to focus on is our recycling program. At both of our factories and in our main office building, we recycle over 60% of our waste. And we recycle all of our metal, plastic, cardboard, paper, magazines, newspaper, wood, plastic bags, foam packaging, whatever it is. We recycle it all. 3 warehouse clerks and an assembler were on this team of 4. Remember we talked about teams of 4? And they said, we want to put a recycling program in. So they defined what they wanted to do. They put out a request for information, an RFI, to 7 local recycling companies in the tri-state area, asking for information about their business and would they be interested in working with us. Got all that information back, reviewed it all, analyzed it all, and said there's 2 that we want to try and work with. We're going to send a request for proposals to, and we want to visit them. Can we take time away from work to go visit? Yes, you can. Charge your mileage to us. Everything, we'll pay you for it. They got proposals back. They went and visited the 2 sites. They analyzed what they needed to do. They put spreadsheets, PowerPoints, everything together, came to us and said, we've got a recommendation. We'd like to make a recommendation at your next management meeting. We'd like to come in and do that. They came in. We approved it. We signed a contract with their chosen recycler in the area. And then they implemented the program and put written documentation together of what is the recycling program at Respironics. And then went out and worked with all the team leaders and supervisors in the plants and got it implemented. 3 warehouse people and an assembler. Can you do that in your company today? We couldn't 3 years ago. We'd have laughed at the idea. But this would have never gotten done either had we not engaged people in wanting to make our culture better. Here's the other neat thing. We used to pay $125,000 a year to have our trash hauled away for our plant. This was before the recession, mind you. It's got a little different during the recession. But immediately afterwards, they haul our trash for free. They still do that today. They haul our trash for free. And we were being paid $130,000 a year for our recyclables, for our plastic, our paper, our cardboard, and our wood. So we made a $250,000 swing in the bottom line, 3 warehouse people and an assembler. Okay? Big things can be done. We have a nice fitness center and a wellness committee now, which came out of the exchange team originally. We have a newsletter that gets published every month, came out of the exchange team. We did some energy conservation things to save us money within the plant, turning lights off, turning run-in carts off, things like that. We have an open house every year. That's all done by the exchange team. And lastly, all of our charitable efforts that come as a part of the exchange team, we support an organization called Operation Troop Appreciation, which sends goods and materials to our troops that are deployed overseas. It's a Pittsburgh-based organization. That's where our support goes. So some pretty amazing things are happening with people just because we've asked them to get involved. And this was an idea that we stole from a local grocery store chain, Giant Eagle. And one of our former directors of HR was an HR guy at Giant Eagle, and he brought the idea to us. So far in this presentation, you've seen nothing we've invented ourselves. And the next topic we also didn't invent. And I'm going to introduce Steph Lazito. Steph is our continuous improvement leader for our organization. I know there's a lot of questions with people. Do you have full-time people working on this? How big's your Kaizen program office? So on and so forth. Steph's our only resource that's dedicated full-time to continuous improvement, and she works 3 days a week. And so she owns our programs, and she's going to talk about our suggestion system that we call Quick and Easy Kaizen.
Thank you, Eric. Everyone hear me okay? Okay, yes, I get to talk about Quick and Easy Kaizen. And quite honestly, this is a very easy topic to talk about, and I could talk much more than the time I'm allotted. But I'll try not to talk too long. It's a self-directed continuous improvement program. Now, what does that mean? It's not a traditional suggestion program. We have an idea generator, a person who submits a suggestion on a form, just like a typical, maybe what you already do in your plants or in your facility. But they're also responsible to implement the solution. Now, they might not be able to implement it all by themselves. They might have to involve another group, say if it's a modification that needs to be made to a cart to make something easier on the line that they work. They would have to involve the equipment group. But they would lead that implementation. They'd be the one that would get the right people involved, make sure it happens in a timely fashion, and we look at that idea once it's then implemented. The fact that it's suggested or that they put an idea out there is great, but more importantly, we implement it, and it's something out there that improves our process. And yes, yet again, another process that we adopted from someone else, and in this case, I'm proud to say it is Toyota. We know the types of continuous improvement programs that they have. So yes, we adopted it from them. Because from Toyota, what do? We train all our associates on identifying opportunities for waste. We know what waste is, the 7 forms of traditional waste, whether or not it's defects or motion, transportation, those types of things. But we train them so that they can go out to their line, they can walk down one of the aisles in the plant, and they can see where there could be an improvement. We also encourage them to look at other lines, not necessarily making the same products, but what they've done in those areas. And we can take that and move it, and the best form of flattery is stealing that idea, right? Every idea is a great idea. And this is important because I will say that not every idea is a QEK. We have some definition around what a QEK is. We'd like it to be simple to implement it. They're not always simple to implement. One of few contact points, meaning I don't have to go talk to 20 people to implement this idea. I can talk to a few people, maybe get it implemented, a little support, or of course I can implement it all by myself. That's even better. But we still consider every idea a great idea, and with a little change or a little modification, we can take a larger scope idea and maybe make it into one or two QEKs, or it could become a project. Eric already touched on this. QEK ideas, the number of ideas that we implement, the participation rate of our people, these are measures of morale in our QCDSM process. We measure this every day. And Eric, we'll talk a little bit more about QCDSM in a moment, but we look at this to say, hey, did you have any ideas implemented today? What's our participation rate this month? Because we don't want just 3 or 4 people to be the ones implementing and suggesting all the ideas. We want everyone to, and not just the associates on the floor. Eric needs to participate in this program just as much as all the leadership team. We're all responsible for this. We're all in this together. I'll tell you a little bit about our 2009 results. We had over 2,400 ideas submitted. And out of that 2,400, 1,800 ideas and solutions implemented. 58% of our workforce participated last year. That was the first time we really measured what participation rate was. We wanted to benchmark that in 2009 so that we could establish goals for 2010. Well, let me tell you what we're doing in 2010 so far. The first quarter, we had 790 ideas implemented in the first quarter. So, pretty impressive. If you look, we've got 3 quarters left in 2010. We're already at over 47% participation for our employees. And again, if you look at that 58% from last year at this time we were at 30, or at the end of the first quarter, we were at 30% participation, and we're at 47. So we're already really, it's very encouraging to see everyone jump on this and get involved. Before I give you a couple very simple QEK examples, and you'll take a look at these and say, well, wow, maybe, why weren't these set up this way or whatever? Let me just tell you that we don't track the dollars that we save for our QEK. So for example, we don't put, this will save me 10 minutes every day, so that's how it equates to how many dollars. We don't do that. We know that when we implement an idea, regardless of the scope, how small, it's going to save the company money. Not only will it save the company money, it makes the implementer, the person that put it out there, feel good. That measure morale, absolutely. It's to see their idea out there in action is much more important than the dollars that we know we are saving, so we don't track those. Very simple example here. As you can see, it's just a filing cabinet. We have scan sheets that we use. This is in our warehouse area. What did they do? Put a filing system in place. We have a lot of business that changes over time. Sometimes things get moved. So yes, they started just throwing things in a drawer, but what did it take to put a filing system in there so they could find their sheets easily? Another simple example. This happens to be a walkie-talkie used by our first responders. What they do, we have, of course, we could have an emergency situation, but even if you drill, they need to find the list of the names that they have to check to make sure that they can find these people during the emergency. And rather than not knowing where this list was or not having it the most updated list, it's attached right to their walkie-talkie that they need. Very simple ideas. This was related to safety. Also in our warehouse or material logistics, a form where they're scanning. Sometimes we had misscans because, the barcode scanner, there's a lot of information or a lot of different barcodes on this one simple form. What did they do? they created a little overlay to put over there. They can still scan quickly down the column. We didn't take away any of that speed time, but now we don't have those misscans. This is a sample retention board, and before, if you see, I'll show you right here, but if you pulled away one of the samples, took it to your station, when you came back, where, you know, did you stick it right up on the board wherever you decided? You can see right here, that's a label now, so that when I've pulled my sample away, walked back over to my station, bring it back, I will put it back exactly in the same spot, so then I do not make it long for the next person to come and find the same sample. So very simple ideas, very easy to implement. These were all self-implemented, didn't need a whole lot of support to do this. And we look at everyone as a problem solver. And all these little problems that we have, all these little simple solutions that we put in place, we have a company of problem solvers versus just a team that goes out and solves everything for us. Thanks.
Steph, appreciate it. I need that. I need the other one. So as you can see, we're not solving world hunger with these ideas. They're pretty simple. And that's the idea. You know, we talked earlier about the myth that said solving all the little problems doesn't matter. You need to solve the big problems. We don't believe that. We believe you have to solve little problems every day. And this one's a great one for two reasons. As Steph said, one, you know where to put it back. But secondly, you also know that one's missing. One of the retained samples is missing. And so it's a very easy visual signal for us. So lastly, wanted to talk about the backbone for our metric system and how we measure performance in our operation. We call it QCDSM. Sat in a lot of presentations this week where people have talked about QC, D, and S, but haven't seen where anybody is talking about M. And we want to talk. Steph talked about M this morning with our Quick and Easy Kaizen program, but we measure morale every day in the plant. Every day, every line, every shift. We talk about morale. And QCDSM is not just our metric and performance measurement system. It's also our communication system. Within the QCDSM process, if I'm a line worker, every morning at the beginning of my shift, I'm going to have a 12-minute meeting with my team. And this meeting is led by possibly me. It's not led by the supervisor. We're going to talk about our performance yesterday on QC, D, S, and M. We're also going to talk about anything else that's going on. Hey, we have a pilot run today, or we got a part shortage, or whatever it might be, or we got a tour coming through today. It's 12 minutes long. The role of one of the people in the meeting is to keep time, to make sure we don't go over our 12 minutes. And we do all this in an area where all of their metrics are posted on a 6-sided rotating column. And so they've got QC, DSM, and side 6 is news. So we can hang company news or whatever, and they hold their meeting there every day. These are not printed out of Excel or whatever. We're using magic markers and bingo doppers to make our charts. They're not fancy. So QCDSM is also our communication tool. It's also what we focus on when we do our weekly management Gemba walk. So at our one factory, 9:30 every Wednesday morning. In fact, we're probably supposed to be there in about 5 minutes, Steph. We have our Gemba walk at our sleep therapy factory. And then at 3:30 in the afternoon, we have our Gemba walk at the Murraysville factory. And we go around to all the various QCDSM areas, and the manager who's responsible for those areas has to present their green and their red and what problems they're having. So what do we measure in QCDSM? For quality, we measure assembly and process errors in the plant. For cost, we measure workforce and process efficiency. Delivery, we measure how we're doing on customer back orders. Safety is the classic incident and severity rate, but we measure all incidents, not just reportables. So even if it's not reportable, it could have been, and it might be considered a near miss, so we're measuring those. And for morale, as Steph said, we're measuring the number of quick and easy Kaizens and our participation rate. This also is the backbone of our quarterly gain sharing program. So our quarterly profit sharing program for our associates in the plant, they're the only ones that participate. Management does not participate in this bonus program. Otherwise, we might be able to gerrymander the numbers so that we could get a payout. These are the 5 things, all equally weighted, 20% each. So if we perform good on these, their pocket's going to get full of money. So this is an incentive for them. So we do daily reviews with the whole team like I talked about. There's also a daily review with the local management team, or what we call our L3 meeting. And then the weekly Gemba walks, as we discussed. It also feeds into team-based problem solving. So if we're having a problem in one of the areas, if it's red, okay, that's long enough. We need to do something about it. We'll tap into one of these tools, a 5Y or 5S, fishbone diagram, whatever it might be. If the problem looks too big for these grassroots types of tools, then perhaps we'll pull out Six Sigma. We'll pull out or we'll pull out an 8D, or we'll pull out Kepner-Trigo, the big problem-solving tools. But almost all of our problems are solved at the grassroots level. We do some Six Sigma projects. Steph's got a couple that she's tracking right now, but it's not our primary tool of choice. So here's some of our results for the last 2 years since we've really heavily focused on QCDSM. We reduced our assembly errors by 40% or more in the last couple of years, year over year. These are year-over-year numbers. Our labor efficiency improved by 26% in 2008. The reason 2009 is such a low number is we are in the process and started in about mid-2009 of consolidating 5 other Philips manufacturing plants into our Murraysville plant. So we've got a lot of new products, we're training a lot of people, and so we're a little slow at it on some of those new lines because we're taking our time. Customer back orders in 2008 we reduced by 46%, in 2009 we reduced by 24%. I told you we have about 6,000 or 7,000 shippable SKUs. Our target number is to have no more than 17 of those in back order every day. So it's a tight target, and we're continuing to improve on that. We've had a reduction in reportable injuries between 35% and 40% over the last couple of years, and we've seen our QEK participation go up by 50%, 52%, and then 45% again in 2009. And if we keep on track with where we were at in the first quarter, we're probably going to show another 40 or 45% number in 2010. So the program is working. Our folks are getting hundreds of dollars a quarter in bonus over this. We're saving a lot of money. We just can't tell you how much because we don't measure it. And that's one of the things that Industry Week, quite candidly, struggled with us on. Couldn't believe that we don't measure how much we save. The second round questions and the third round questions and the tour at our facility last year when Steve came to visit us, it was a touch point with them. But we got through it because we know if we're doing this, we're saving money. These are some other opportunities for engagement. We're now in the process of making a lot of our folks tour guides. We get them involved in new product introduction activities designed for manufacturability studies. Party committees give presentations at our all-employee meetings every month, or newsletter authors, and so on. And the last one's my favorite. They help us deal with the grouches. When you have an engaged workforce, they're going to out the people that aren't playing the game properly. And they're going to tell you about the fact that somebody's being a grouch and you need to address it. When you don't have an engaged workforce, they don't care. And in fact, they may become one of those grouches. So there was a guy who worked at General Electric. It's a true story. Jason told me this story. He was a 35 or 40-year employee at General Electric. It was his retirement party. Every boss he ever worked for was there. The president of the division for GE Locomotive was there, everything. And they were all talking about how wonderful this guy was and how much we're going to miss him, so on and so forth. Now it's his turn to stand up. Thank you, everybody, for saying all the good words. Can't believe everybody's here, so on. I'm going to miss you guys, so on, so on. But there's one thing I will never forgive you for in all of my 35 years here at GE Locomotive. You never asked me my opinion. In essence, they were asking him to check his brain at the door every day. They didn't care what he thought. They wanted him to do it their way. Don't allow your employees to check their brains at the door. It's not helpful. So you can improve morale. You can have a feeling of purpose. You can create passion. You can decrease turnover. You can have less whining and more ideas and solutions, or for the engineers in the room, more signal, less noise going on in the organization. You can have a lot better results, and you can solve problems at the lowest levels. And guess what? You're going to find some diamonds in the rough that you never knew existed. People that were just part of the woodwork, part of the landscape, that are just going to be wonderful. And I'll tell you what, it's also a lot more fun this way. It's really a lot more fun. So in summary, you've got to change your style if you want to make this happen, because you've got to get out of their way. You can't continue to solve people's problems for them. You can't continue to shoulder the burden of everything that is busting their morale every day. You've got to teach them how to fish for themselves, and then they can feed themselves. Solve the small problems, and a lot of them. Because if you're not solving small problems, eventually what's going to happen is you will die a death of 1,000 cuts. Because all those little problems add up. It's not about implementing SAP. It's not about doing all the big stuff, putting a new building in. It's about solving the small problems. And when you push people's emotions to enthusiasm, the outcomes are just incredible. And that's what you've got to do. They want to help. Don't let them check their brains at the door. Measure morale. Figure out what you need to do to make sure your employees are happy at work. And really, in the end, what's the risk of asking people to help? What's the risk? You probably shoulder more of the burden of risk than they do, and it's emotional risk. Get over it. Get out there and ask your people to help you out. Empower them, enable them, and engage them. So we'll end with a couple of quotes. It's surprising what remarkable results responsible people can produce when you just get out of their way. It's true. We've proved it over the last couple of years, and it's not easy. It's so, especially if you're an engineer in management, God, you just want to solve some problems for people. You want to do it. Get out of their way. When complaining becomes a crime, hope becomes despair. The reason I use this quote is because every complaint is an opportunity. And if you aren't listening to the complaints, if you aren't taking them seriously, people are going to stop talking to you. And that will be the worst thing that will happen to you. And that was Abe Lincoln. And lastly, here's my challenge. You don't get anywhere by standing on the sidelines waiting for somebody else to take action. Whether it's building a better widget or building a better future for our children, we all have a role to play. That's the challenge. It's a call to action for people who, like me, believe in people. It's not too late, but it may be getting pretty close. Enable, empower, and engage your teams, and the future could be really bright if you do. So I thank you for your time today, and we'll take any questions that you have.
Good morning. Excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
You may have covered this already. You mentioned in your exchange team that employees must apply to become a member. What incentive do you offer? How do you get them to sign up?
Actually, that's a great question because we get asked that in question by our employees themselves. Why should I go do this? And the incentive is that there's a couple-fold incentive. One is they're going to be a part of something that's going to make change happen in the organization. They're going to be a part of something that's going to make their lives and their coworkers' lives a lot better. Secondly, it gives them exposure because at every all-employee meeting, the exchange teams have to present. So they're standing up in front of 600 employees, and they're getting some exposure out of it. Third thing is they're learning some stuff. And I attend just about every one of their monthly meetings, and I share stuff with them I don't share with anybody else. Or I ask their opinion on things, or we ask them to make decisions for us. Like, what should our shift hours be? A couple of years ago, they made that decision for us, those 20 people in a room. And we also take them on a field trip every year. And this year, we're going to take them to another local medical device manufacturer. They're not a competitor of ours. But most of them, if not all of them, have never been in another medical device manufacturing plant. So they get a little special, they get to do some special things. And so there's no compensation, there's no bonus. They get some free cookies and soft drinks and things like that, but there's really nothing there. It's all about just the passion to want to help us make things better and the notion that you might get recognized for what you're doing and you can move forward.
When the people are on the exchange team and they're on it for two years, I'm assuming they're part-time on this team. That's not a
yes. They still have their 8-hour day, 40-hour-a-week job, and our team meetings are from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., which straddles our shift change, and so we will pay them overtime for the time they spend at the monthly team meeting. We will also pay them overtime for any other meetings that they have to have as a sub-team. And each team gets $4,000 a year in budget as well. I didn't mention that. We budget $20,000 a year. They can spend it however they want. So our open house team, we're going to have snacks and cookies. We're going to have a balloon artist come in and all that sort of stuff. They're spending their $4,000 that way. But yeah, this is just something else they do every day at work.
Certainly very much a fan. Do you still have traditional supervision out on the workforce?
Yeah, we do. We let's not confuse an engaged workforce with a completely self-directed workforce. We do have supervisors in the organization, and they are salaried individuals. They also are, in some ways, facilitators of some of these programs, like the quick and easy Kaizen program that Steph talked about. We have to review every idea to make sure, one, was it already suggested or, in fact, rejected in the past, and two, are there any regulatory implications of that idea that we might need to make a change or might need to involve process control or somebody like that. But, in the end, they're doing the hiring and firing, and they're setting the strategy for the team. But the hour-by-hour, day-by-day management of the production process or the material logistics process is self-directed. The role of that supervisor is that day-by-day, week-by-week sort of focus. At the shop floor and for our specialists, it's that hour-by-hour, minute-by-minute management. They're very much self-directed. Yes, sir.
Your measurement of morale of the quick and easy Kaizen for the participation, how do you establish what that goal should be that the team should meet?
Sure. So all of the QC-DSM metrics, all the goals are established the same way, and we use statistical techniques. So, for example, in January of 2010, we wanted to reestablish our goals for 2010. So we took the last 6 months' data from July through December that we achieved. We found a mean and a standard deviation. The mean then becomes our absolute minimum target. If you achieve only what we achieved in the last 6 months, you're going to get a really small payout, a 1% payout. The target is then set at a 1 standard deviation for most metrics. It depends on the span. We've got to look at the span of the standard deviation. If it's a small span, it might be a couple standard deviations. If it's a really large span, we might make it half a standard deviation. But in general, the target becomes 1 standard deviation of improvement. The maximum payout becomes 2 standard deviations of improvement. So the message being, if we just keep at the performance that we had last year, we're not going to get hardly any bonus at all, if anything. We have to improve year over year over year. And just in the first quarter, our target payout is 5% of the employee's quarterly earnings. Just in the first quarter, which should be the hardest, right? The targets have all been reset. The payout's 5.18%. On average, all of our metrics in the first quarter already improved 1 standard deviation over last year.